Всем привет, друзья! Мы продолжаем проходить игру Vampyr. Так, пока что побочек нету, насколько я помню. Есть. Найти человека, который умеет читать шрифт Брайля. Понят. Но это задание будет выполняться, ну так. То есть... Стоп. Это прям рядом с убежищем? Эти твари у меня тусуются? Вы что забыли? Здесь. Так, ну-ка. Ну-ка, тихо. Кровь как объект зависимости. Вампиры пьют кровь. Я бы сказал, что это их отличительная черта, жуткое природное свойство. Но я никогда не считал это просто особенностью рациона. Я начал изучать вампиров, поскольку меня всегда завораживала их неодолимая тяга крови. Жажда настолько сильна, что иногда даже заставляет вампиров выдавать себя, как когда они пьют кровь, то, похоже, ненадолго впадают в транс. Это для них экстатическое откровение, как выразился один Вулкот, с которым я беседовал в Москве. В Москве? Я убежден, что это ключевой элемент к пониманию природы вампиров. Они пьют кровь не для насыщения, а именно потому, что это приводит их в экстаз. Все вампиры, без исключения, зависимы от крови. То есть все вампиры наркоманы. Правильно понимаю? Такова их природа, и даже те бессмертные, что отказываются пить кровь и противопоставляют своей жажде лишь силу воли, никогда не избавятся от этой зависимости. Разоблаченная ночь. Ашер Толтри. Глава Братства Святого Павла. Блин, плохо всю жизнь жить зависимым, не поддаваться тягу к этой зависимости, держать себя в руках. Это прям очень не очень. Так.
I cannot enter.
Нам нужно найти жителей Уайтчепела, Ричарда Ниттеркота и Клейтона Дарби. Стоп, я вышел с другой стороны убежища. Мне нужно туда. Фак. Я понял. Опять заходить и выходить. Прекрасно. Ой, загрузился. Тут два выхода. Но, скорее всего, это тот, который я не смог зайти сверху. Сейчас проверим. Ну давай быстрее немножечко. Давай, давай, давай. Надо будет узнать планы разработчиков этой игры. Есть ли у них что-нибудь типа продолжения. Но от мигрени у меня нет этого лекарства.
Good evening, Benjamin. Can I help you?
I'm afraid not, Mr. Reid.
You don't seem well, Benjamin. Do you need any help?
I always feel ill, sir. It's like I'm never right.
Да, нет.
I will see you later. A gun, alcohol, and a bad...
Я помню, кому-то в дом стучался. Сюда вроде.
I must insist, sir. Please let me see Nurse
Блин,
Craig.
нет.
I have no time for you, sir.
Вот сука. Так, в другую дверь стучался.
We distribute flowers at this point.
А, ну вот еще. Поговорить должен.
Welcome, sir. Please take a browse of my wares.
I am Dr. Reid. I would like to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind.
Doctor? Interesting. I'm Barrett Lewis. Usually I don't have time to waste with talk, but at this hour of the night I can hardly refuse.
Have you heard of a nurse called Dorothy Crane?
Nurse Crane? So the bitch really is a nurse, then? Always thought she was just some crafty foreigner, that one.
So she's trying to help her fellow immigrants. Why would that make her a villain?
Dorothy Crane ain't even a real name. Something like Dorothea Craniu. Something like that. Came to England fleeing the war, I was told.
That doesn't explain why she irritates you so much.
Your precious Nurse Crane gives away medical supplies and prescriptions for free. I offered to sell it for a fair cut, but no. Miss Crane wanted to play the quiet saint.
How is business around here?
Business? I have no business. Between this racket, theft, and customers getting scared, I'm losing money every day.
I see. Sounds like you blame someone in particular for your situation.
It's no secret Joe Peterson spends his time harassing merchants. But with me, he's trying to put me out of business once and for all.
As a merchant, you see Whitechapel every day. Have you noticed anything out of the ordinary recently?
Well, you mean besides the epidemic, the war, and all the usual crap? As long as I can remember, this part of town has been a bottomless pit, and no sign of the bottom yet.
Violence is increasing in the borough.
Yeah. A few nights ago, some blokes jumped me. Came out of one of the condemned workshops. Fever, madness, something like that.
Where did this happen? Why did you go there?
In the closed workshops nearby. I worked there as an apprentice in better days. Now I only go to find trinkets or tools. Too bad I was mugged, though. There was good money in that little box of loot I lost.
Have you been hurt?
No, but that's only because I ran like hell. Those men were raving lunatics, I tell you. Not even able to speak anymore, just screaming.
Ну,
Right then. Show me what you have.
алюминиевый осколок, пружина, масло. Так, это следующий.
Excuse me, sir. I have a few questions for you.
Another journalist? I didn't answer the first one, so piss off!
I'm not a journalist, I'm a doctor.
A doctor, you say? It's quite a rare breed in this part of town.
Really? But still, here I am. Dr. Jonathan Rid, at your service.
I'm Joe Peterson to some, but Colossus Joe to most. And I don't remember asking for your service, sir.
Have you heard of a nurse named Dorothy Crane? She's a colleague of mine, and is supposed to live around here.
Dorothy Crane? Yeah, I know her. One of the few good souls who dare to help the sick around here.
Could you please tell me more about her?
She's a nice girl. Tries to help the migrants. I offered to give her a hand, but she said my reputation would attract too much attention.
According to you, physicians are scarce in this part of town. Why is that?
Not familiar with this neighborhood, are you? I guess your fancy colleagues are too afraid of being stabbed in the back.
This part of town does have quite a reputation. Would you say it's justified?
Totally. Look at me, for instance. I always look my opponent in the eye before knocking him out.
May I ask what you do around here?
I do whatever I want, and sometimes even more. Now sod off.
How did you become the local bully everyone is afraid of, Joe?
There's no pride in roughing up poor bastards. But this is the only job I've found. And it pays well, too.
A job? So you're racketeering for someone else?
I got enlisted by the Wet Boot Boys, a gang from the docks. I'm their muscle for their dirty work.
You survive at any cost, even at the expense of others. Perhaps that's just the law of nature.
I don't care what you think, sir. I do what I have to do for my own reasons, and that's that.
I'm not sure Mr. Lewis would agree with your by all means necessary philosophy, sir.
Oh, do you really think he's the poor victim here? Barrett can be as sneaky as anyone. Long ago, I even called the bastard my best friend.
Goodbye, Mr. Peterson.
Лучший друг.
Fancy buying something, sir?
You never lose your focus, do you? Joe Peterson. He's the villain here, isn't he? But you seem to know each other.
I'd known Joe for years. I saw him box once or twice. He was a friend then. But these days, he's just another thug.
What can you tell me about Mr. Peterson? Besides his behavior toward you, obviously.
Colossus Joe was a decent boxer, good one even. But after his wife passed away, he found every excuse to stop training. Just wanted to pick fights with everyone.
It's never easy to find a new path in life, especially after the loss of a loved one. But crime is certainly not the best option.
We've all had some rough times, ain't we? But most of us don't use our fists to see us through.
And no one has ever stood up to this thug.
Nobody would be fool enough to stand against the Wet Boot Boy.
Goodbye for now, Mr. Lewis.
Священник.
Forgive my interruption.
Do not apologize, my son. Father Tobias Whitaker is always happy to teach mortals about the incoming Armageddon.
I am Dr. Jonathan Rid, and I just have a few questions.
A scientist? You are much more lost than I thought.
О, не начинай.
Do you know Nurse Dorothy Crane from the Pembroke Hospital? I'd like to know more about her.
I don't like the liberal ideas of nurses, but I especially abhor that Nurse Crane you mentioned.
Чего?
So, you're not exactly a fan of Florence Nightingale's work. But nurses are essential for modern healthcare.
Nuns should be the only women allowed to take care of male patients. It's obvious only they have the necessary moral fiber.
Какая чушь.
Why do you hate Nurse Crane more than other nurses?
Before coming to London, She was a member of the communist resistance in our country. That's what happens when you let a woman get involved in politics.
What do you mean when you say that I am more lost than you thought?
All scientists are entangled in a world of causes and consequences. And most of them can't see the plain truth.
Quite a judgmental opinion, if you ask me. But what do I know? Blinded by science as I am.
But you are seeking answers, aren't you? Answers about the Armageddon about to strike the city. Answers about the hidden truth.
I am. But the answers I seek are based on facts, not superstition. What do you...
All
quite a...
but you...
Well, I suppose I can spare a few minutes listening to your so-called truth.
As a doctor, you must be aware of the decimating epidemic. But let me tell you that this so-called Spanish flu is just the beginning of the end.
What do you mean?
The beast is finally revealing itself, corrupting the flesh and the heart of men. With my own eyes I have seen them, those minions from the abyss.
Really? And what would be your answer to this biblical threat?
We must fight the disease before this legion outnumbers us. But not with scalpels and microscopes. No.
What is left then?
Cleansing fire.
Tell me, Tobias, what exactly is your plan concerning the cleansing of this city?
God will recognize his own. More than once this city has risen from the ashes, hardened and purified by the flames.
Fire is just the instinctive answer of a caveman facing something he does not understand. This is the 20th century.
Your lack of faith is predictable. But my task is to convince rational minds like yours to see the light. This is God's will.
You're mad and dangerous. You're nothing but a soulless butcher. A small-time Torquemada. The Savonarola of Whitechapel.
My son, if you think salvation is a free gift, go listen to the lies of that pompous fool, Joseph.
Joseph, a fool?
Vicar Larrabee of St. Mary's Church. While he continues preaching his fraudulent redemption, more and more people die in the streets.
Have you any friends? Any family left in these terrible times?
No. But I have a disciple I see as my son. He is so devoted. I sent him to preach the good word in the heart of this corrupted city.
Where did you send him?
I sent Samuel to the Stonebridge Cemetery, where the pestilence and evil grows night after night.
You sent him on some preaching crusade during the epidemic.
As a true believer, Samuel will
Отличная идея избавиться от своего ученика.
walks through the valley of the shadow of death.
I have heard enough for tonight. Goodbye.
Что-то я уже много кого встретил, пока искал этих двоих. Бля. Кончилось. Да я нажимаю на треугольник, ну бля. О, кладбище. Издательский дом Подхалим, Лавендер-Корт, Кемптон-Стрит, Лондон. Уважаемый мистер Ниттеркот, спасибо за то, что прислали ваш сборник стихов «Песни сломленного города». Мы нашли его интересным. Это же мы вам ответили в первый раз, когда его получили. Но вы должны понять, что в это страшное время для нашей страны публикация данной книги была бы совершенно неуместной. И поскольку вы отказываетесь менять название и требуете, чтобы работу напечатали либо в полном объеме, либо вообще не публиковали, то мы решили выбрать второй вариант. С наилучшими пожеланиями, А. Джей Моррис.
Morbidity can breathe its own beauty and grace. Whitechapel is not just as...
Good evening, sir. I'm Dr. Reid. I would like to ask you a few questions.
Please be my guest. Although I may not be the best informant regarding this part of town, my words speak about that which the eyes cannot see.
Really? Are you an artist of some kind?
I'm a poet, sir. Richard Nethercott, at your service.
Господи.
May I ask you a few questions about the district?
Extraordinary part of town, is it not? I'll be glad to help you, if I can.
I'm looking for Dorothy Crane, a nurse who lives in this vicinity.
Dorothy Crane. Oh, I love the name. The Crane of Whitechapel. Sounds very mysterious. But, sorry, no, never heard of her.
What can you tell me about an old man called Darius?
Darius Petrescu. Yes, I know him. At first, I thought he was only a small publisher. I invited him to publish my work, but his reaction was pretty clear.
Not interested in your talent?
Darius is an old political activist who takes delight in printing tracts and lampoons. Those communist activities only require mediocre writing skills.
May I ask what you're doing at this hour of night, sir? Do you live here?
Not at all. I'm just enjoying the pleasure of a quiet walk. Though night talks are always preferable, if you ask me. Especially with strangers.
But are you not afraid of the epidemic?
Oh, why should I? I see some equity in the Spanish flu. No flesh should be saved, say the scriptures. Good or evil, rich or poor, all are equal in the eyes of the flu.
If you say so. But as a physician in a time of epidemic, I must caution you to avoid unnecessary exposure, sir.
Thank you, Doctor. But we both know the seeker of truth has to go boldly where the weak dare not.
What are your thoughts on the terrible situation in this city?
Terrible, you say? No. Of course, the death of so many innocents is a tragedy. But the scourge has not been all bad for the city. Oh, no, sir.
What are you talking about?
Do you remember London before the flu? Noisy, cacophonic, quiet nowhere to be found. And now, listen to this oddly peaceful silence.
Yes. The enjoyable silence of the grave. You have a unique perspective on the situation, I must admit.
Most people fail to understand my perspective. I don't blame them. But how could I call myself a poet if I veiled my feelings?
Are you aware that your life could be in danger in this part of town?
But this is where I must be to feel the real beat of the city. I had to come, see it for myself, alone.
I understand your need for solitude, but it's not safe around here.
I don't care. I don't have many friends, Doctor, and my family despises me.
If some misfortune came upon you, who would be here to help you?
Well, you for a start, my dear Doctor.
Tell me, Mr. Nethercott, why seek inspiration in Whitechapel?
The place is not beautiful per se, but how to explain it? Stirring and challenging.
In what way, exactly?
The struggle by gaslight, The barren smiles and the arid hunger under the rain.
If you say so.
Such vibrant antagonism and vivid paradox. The stripped humanity raged across each street.
Vivid, of course, yes. And what about the poignant distress?
Oh yes, the poignant distress. You see what I mean, don't you? That's what I want to write about, and that's what Uайтчепела is made of.
Do you not think it a little morbid?
On the contrary, sir, Uайтчепela is full of life, full of beauty. Just like my dear muse, the wonderful Camellia.
What can you tell me about Camellia?
Not much, and that's the beauty of it. She can't speak, you know. She's a locked mystery who exhales kindness and sweetness.
Perhaps you're just afraid to find out the truth about your muse.
One day, perhaps, I'll ask her to come with me. But will she still be my wild flower of Uайтчепела if she moves uptown?
And have you ever tried to learn more about her? Where she lives? How she survives? Whom she may know?
Maybe I prefer she remains an enigma. Reality can be so dull, don't you think?
You don't really make a living from your scribblings, do you, Richard?
No, sir, I don't. I work so hard. I put all my time, my energy, my devotion into the precise carving of words.
Still, you don't seem to suffer from poverty.
With thanks to my parents, actually. I'm afraid I would not be able to live on my own without their help.
You seem embarrassed.
Someday I hope to proudly offer my first publication to my parents. Until that day, I'll remain the failure of a son they have to support.
I'll leave you alone, sir.
А где его муза? А, вот она.
Good evening, miss. I'm Dr. Reed. I'd like to ask you a few questions. I know what you're thinking. A tall stranger who meets a girl in the street at night. It reeks of the penny dreadfuls. But I mean you no harm, truly.
Она не разговаривает?
I know you understand what I'm saying. Your silence has nothing to do with you being mute, does it? Tell me about Richard Nethercote. I understand he is quite fond of you, Camellia.
Классно.
Very well. Goodbye then.
Она какой-то обет молчания приняла или что? Ну ладно. Не уходи пока рано. Там появился какой-то вариант с ним поговорить, что ли,
Hello
опять?
again, miss. Camellia, I know you work for Dorothy Crane. Please tell me about her secret dispensary.
Классно.
A stubborn and mute comrade. Nurse Crane and Darius Petrescu have been clever. Very well. Goodbye then.
А я еще думал, почему я не помню с ней ничего. И зачем сюда телепорт? Фиг знает. Ой, я помню.
Don't be shy, handsome. What can Christina do for you?
I'm not looking for what you're selling. But I'd like to ask you a few questions, if I may. I'm a doctor. Dr. Reed.
All right then, but be quick. Though I usually get paid when I open my mouth.
Do you know Nurse Dorothy Crane from the Pembroke Hospital? Anything you can tell me about her would be helpful.
I don't know her, but I know her name is Dorothea Crăciunescu. She came from Romania like me and many others.
You seem to respect her.
Dorothea helps the sick people of Uайтчепela. Everyone should respect that.
Christina, have you been examined? The epidemic is spreading fast in London, and you could be exposed. Or expose others.
I don't like doctors or hospitals, but I don't like you asking questions.
Considering your line of work, I assure you it is only a matter of time before you have health issues.
If it is going to happen, it will happen. Right now, I need money. That's what's important.
You can put your own life in danger, that's your decision. But what about your clients? If you're contaminated, you will put them in danger too.
And you think that would worry me? If you knew the men I deal with, their health would not be what you'd worry about.
Ясно.
Tell me about yourself.
Are you joking with me? People don't usually come to see me for conversation.
I have no interest in your work. I am, however, curious as to what led you into this career.
Short story. The war, exile, and England. This country is not especially welcoming. I've been refused many jobs because of where I am from. I had few options left.
I'm sure you could have found another job, perhaps less lucrative. Maybe you should try again.
And when exactly was the last time you looked for a job? Or worried about the rent, or what, or when you were going to eat?
Goodbye, miss.
Ладно.
Take care of yourself as best you can.
Переутомление тоже.
Good
Подожди.
evening, Christina.
Change your mind, Mr. Reed?
Do you need any assistance, Miss Popper?
It depends
Hoppa.
on the price of your medicine.
А, у меня кончились они.
I
Блин,
will see you later. Good.
черт. О, как я не заметил в прошлый раз.
Excuse me, sir. Are you familiar with this part of town? Name's Clayton Darby, reporter.
Sorry, I'm new to Whitechapel. But perhaps you could help me since you're a journalist. My name is Jonathan Reed.
Dr. Reed, the famous surgeon. I'll gladly help if I'm able, sir.
Why are the newspapers keeping silent about the Spanish influenza? It's as though none of you care.
There's a war going on. People shouldn't be demoralized by news of deadly diseases.
I served in France. Our top priority must be to put an end to this butchery. This war must stop now.
Sir, streets are a battlefield too. An invisible and untold war is going on, and it must be stopped.
Have you any idea of the danger you face in these streets at night?
I've had to run and hide more than once from frenzied mobs incensed by the fever. Do you think the flu is really responsible for this, Doctor?
I'm convinced there is more at work here than a simple epidemic.
Really? To be honest, I could say the same. Some of the sick I saw or heard of. My God, what happened to them?
What is a journalist doing in this borough after sunset?
He goes where none of his colleagues would dare to go, to inform the country.
So you risk your life to reveal the truth. I saw many reporters do the same during the war.
Whitechapel is the crucible of so many untold stories and tragedies. I want people to know them.
That's quite honorable of you. But is the public interested?
Not at all, sir. And that's why I'm an independent journalist, hoping to sell some stories.
Christina Popper claims she sells her body because she can't find any other work. Do you believe her?
Of course I do. Her story is exactly what I want my readers to understand. We live in an intolerant and divided nation.
Do you think things will ever change, Mr. Darby?
I believe the situation can only improve. And now that women can vote, I'm convinced things will change.
I heard you're investigating an underground medical dispensary in Whitechapel. What do you know about it?
Not much, I'm afraid. They are wary of strangers, and I'm not really an acquaintance of theirs. Why do you care?
I'm a doctor, Mr. Darby. I care about everything involving public health and this epidemic.
Are you sure you're not just concerned about the repercussions that a scandal involving a certain Nurse Crane from the Pembroke Hospital would bring?
Without a doubt, you are a damn fine journalist, Mr. Darby. What do you know of her accomplice, a man named Darius?
I don't know much about the man. He's very cautious. Never goes out. Doesn't seem to have any friends or family.
He has no relatives at all?
No. Except for that strange man, a poet named Richard Nethercott, who sometimes comes by. Darius would never let him in.
Where can I find this Mr. Nethercott?
He spends most of his time lurking around Whitechapel, talking to himself or declaring verses. These days, you can usually find him behind the church.
He never goes out?
No. A few days ago, he unexpectedly did. I followed him, but it was just a ruse to keep me away from his house.
Really? How do you know?
He went to the nearest mailbox, but just before posting his letter, he ripped it up and threw it away.
Goodbye, Mr. Darby. Farewell.
Тоже при утомлении. Да вы охренели? Все больны. Тогда я не буду больше сохраняться в кровати. Вообще нельзя взаимодействовать с дверью. Найти почтовый ящик и письмо. Так, с ним вроде вариант диалога открылся новый.
Good evening, Mr. Nethercott.
And good evening to you too, my good sir. Can I be of any help?
Did you know the mute florist is a member of a secret society?
No, I didn't. But I thank you for this information, sir. For it only enriches the mystery surrounding the precious camellia.
Are you not curious? Is there not more you wish to know?
That girl has not an ounce of malice in her. Whatever she may be hiding, it's certain to be for the benefit of most, if not all.
I fear you are a hopeless romantic, Mr. Nethercott.
Guilty as charged, Dr. Reed.
Ясно.
I'll leave you alone, sir.
Не пойму, где почтовый ящик. Класс. Письмо Дариуса Петреску. Мои дорогие, горячо любимые дети, мне так жаль, что у вас несколько месяцев не было вестей от меня. В Лондоне сложная ситуация. Я знаю, что мог показаться эгоистом и дураком вам, мои дети. Ведь вы все еще живете в стране, где идет война. Но здесь, в Англии, тоже идет война. Война с бедностью и несправедливостью. Это война, в которой я намереваюсь участвовать, несмотря на свой преклонный возраст. Вот почему я пишу вам сегодня. В Румынию я не вернусь. Блин, постоянно зеваю. Это означает, что, вероятно, я вас больше не увижу. Не грустите, мои милые, ведь вы уже взрослые, у вас свои дети. Вы знаете, на какие жертвы нужно идти, чтобы изменить мир. Вот жертва, которую должен принести я, чтобы снова почувствовать себя нужным. Желаю вам жить долго и счастливо. Поцелуйте от меня моих внуков и помните, что Отец любит вас, даже когда находится в этой холодной стране. Любящий вас Отец Дариус Петреску.
The content of Darius' letter to his children could give me more leverage to enter. Darius is a bit less of a mystery now. It should not be that difficult to incite him to let me in.
Но я пока не особо хочу торопиться идти по сюжету, потому что открылась куча заданий обычных. К примеру, вот это задание. О, нехило так отсюда. А вот это... близко довольно.
No protection against malevolence and trickery.
Burn it first! Oh, Christ!
Так. А я ж думал не пройти. Что происходит? Не особо понимаю, что сейчас делать.
This could be the box Lewis thought he lost.
Барретт, мне нелегко говорить это, но я буду откровенна. Дальше так продолжаться не может. По крайней мере, я так больше не могу. Если Джо про нас узнает, что мы его жена и лучший друг, это его убьет. А потом он убьет меня. Нам было хорошо вместе, но давай на чистоту. Я никогда не стану Джейн Льюис. Ты это знаешь, и я тоже. Поэтому я разрываю наши отношения. Прямо здесь и сейчас. И если ты согласен, то когда-нибудь мы наверняка снова сможем быть счастливы. Ты, Джо и я. И тогда мы сохраним самую важную часть нашей истории. А пока я надеюсь, что ты простишь меня. Всего тебе хорошего, Джейн Питерсон.
A love letter from Joe Peterson's wife addressed to Barrett Lewis. Who should I give it to, I wonder?
Рассказать про измену, не рассказать. Стоп. Это вообще не то, что я искал. А, не, все то правильно. То есть теперь надо вернуться обратно, так ведь? Блин, жалко, перепрыгнуть нельзя. Так, ну к Дариусу мы зайдем попозже. Так. Давайте-ка обработаем информацию. Где мои записи? Барретт разрывает... Джейн разрывает отношения с Барреттом. То есть его жена, вот этого чувака, изменялась тем лохом?
What do you want this time?
Ань. Да, получается. Вау.
I think the documents in this box could be of some interest to you.
Really? Where'd you get it?
I found it in an abandoned building nearby. I thought you might want to keep these letters.
Let me see. Letters about my boy. Thank you, sir.
You do not appear surprised or pained by this.
Surprised about what? Harry's my son, I'm his father, and that's all there is to know, don't you think?
Yes, I suppose you're right.
Here's a little something for your trouble. And to remind you to keep your mouth shut about all this.
И во что это интересно выльется?
Goodbye, Mr. Peterson. Hello, young man. It's me again. May I come in?
I told you before. I don't think my father would agree with that.
Your father is worried about you, boy. He asked me to look for you.
So my father actually worries about me then? Okay then. Come on in. I'm a Harry, by the way.
Is there only pain and suffering in this world?
Тебя граблю чутка. Погоди. Я надеюсь, ты не против.
So, may I ask you a few questions?
I'm not bothered. What could be worse?
Do you know Nurse Dorothy Crane from the Pembroke Hospital? I'd like to know more about her.
Yes, I know her. She came here to examine me when I was very sick. She said I should go out more.
How do you feel?
I'm fine. I mean, it's not easy every day.
Крутовато.
I'm just tired of being sick all the time. If only I could be tough, like... Well, you know.
Speaking of which, what can you tell me about your father?
My father is an idiot who makes idiot things. That's all I have to say.
Forgive my bluntness, young man, but you don't seem happy living in Uайтчепела.
Why should I? I never wanted to come here in the first place. It was my father's decision. And look around you. Does this look like a nice place to live?
I'm sure your father did his best when he found this house. Times are tough for everyone, young man.
That's exactly what my father says. Harry, you should be grateful for what you've got. But I wasn't even consulted when we moved here.
If life here is so terrible for you, why don't you just leave this place? Have you ever spoken to your father about it?
I don't go outside. It terrifies me so.
Ну да.
I went outside once without my father noticing and I saw terrible things. Bloody and frightening things.
So that's why you stay at home all day? For fear of the epidemic?
I'm not afraid of disease or death, Dr. Reid. It's the living I'm afraid of.
Я думаю, многие люди боятся обычной жизни.
Your father and Mr. Lewis used to be good friends. What happened, Harry?
I was young then. I don't remember Mr. Lewis ever coming back again after my mother died. Or was it after my father started bullying him? I don't know.
Have you tried speaking to Mr. Lewis about it?
I don't go out often, but yes. And he scolded me and told me to leave him alone. I guess my father frightens him too much.
But you are not responsible for your father's actions.
Am I not? Dad always says that he joined that gang for my safety. So if I wasn't born, people wouldn't be worrying about Colossus Joe.
Do you remember when Barrett Lewis was close to your family? To your mother?
Not really. I was too young. But I remember it was a happier time. Mr. Lewis was funny. He often had dinner with us.
Why are you sad then?
Because it hurts to remember a time when my father used to laugh and smile. It hurts to realise he's as sad as me now.
How was he towards you?
He was nice, I guess. He never forgot my birthday. He always offered me books. I liked books.
Ясно. Не очень-то информативненько.
Goodbye, young man.
Ну ладно.
Take care of yourself.
Even my dreams are soaked with glue.
Профессиональные охотники на вампиров. Если вы заподозрили кого-то в том, что он вампир, не предпринимайте самостоятельных попыток его убить. У вас нет шансов. Вместо этого обратитесь ко мне или постарайтесь найти профессионального убийцу вампиров. Их мало, но они знают, как справиться с этими жуткими существами. Часть из них, похоже, действует вместе под именем Стража Привина. Это полувоенная организация, цель которой – очистить Лондон от вампиров. Они ваши друзья, вы не одни, у вас есть варианты. Действуйте с умом. Расскажите об этом другим. Кларенс Кросли. За дополнительной информацией обращайтесь напрямую ко мне. Мистер Питерсон, мой долг сообщить вам о том, что ваша просьба принять вас на работу в доке была отклонена. Я благодарен вам за то, что вы потратили время, объясняя сложность вашей ситуации. Рассказали о том, что у вас болен сын и что умерла ваша дорогая жена. Но мой долг состоит также в том, чтобы разъяснять правила нашей компании. А они явно запрещают брать на работу бывших преступников и осужденных. Ваши связи со скандально известными мокрыми ботинками не укрылись от вашего внимания. От нашего внимания, может. Сейчас тяжелые времена, сэр, и компания Финч и Харпер намерена прежде всего вознаграждать кандидатов, прошедших небольшую проверку, которую мы устраиваем соискателям. И я от всей души сочувствую вам. Да не оставит Бог вас и вашу семью. Искренне ваш Р.Д. Харпер. Приятно.
It's locked, all right.
Так, ну кажется, на этом придется закончить. Сохраняться, как я говорил, уже в кровати я не буду. Потому что я боюсь, что там произойдет на следующий день с жителями города. Может, они вообще начнут умирать. Я не знаю.
Even my dreams are soaked with glue.
We haven't made this week, Joe. Come on, we can sort it out, right?
It's not my call, Barrett.
Так что продолжим в следующей серии.
How long have we known each other?
Всем спасибо за просмотр. Ставьте лайки, подписывайтесь. Главное, комментируйте, чтобы я мог с вами общаться. До скорых встреч.